of Headspace Diaries.
I'm Kenna.
I'm Bhavya.
I'm Yusra.
And today we're going to be exploring more in depth what our risk and protective factors are concerning this campaign. And not to mention that we also have a guest speaker with us today.
Yeah, so specifically we're going to be talking about the risk factors, erratic sleep patterns, diet and nutrition, and social withdrawal. And protective factors wise, we're going to be talking about consistent sleep and healthy habits, positive community relations, and open communication and emotional support.
And also we're going to be including our mindfulness practices in there. And then later in our episode, we will have our guest speaker on to help us dive into these topics, so stay tuned. And on to our first segment, which is where we talk about our risk and protective factors.
Now we're going to be delving deeper into how certain risk and protective factors can improve or be detrimental to your youth anxiety.
Okay, so our first one, or I guess our first risk factor, is erratic sleep and diet. So first off, when you're not getting enough of either sleep or nutrition, your emotional regulation and your cognitive ability is gonna decrease or degrade, and this is common in adolescence because, well, it just exacerbates feelings of stress, irritability, and it just makes it overall harder to cope with daily challenges. Sleep deprivation also correlates with impulsivity. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Okay. Mood swings and reduced ability to focus, all of which heighten anxiety levels. This creates a vicious cycle, or a constant cycle that further impairs sleep quality. On the dietary front, however, high consumption of processed foods or sugar, low nutrition density, and irregular meal timings can lead to low blood sugar or blood sugar fluctuations and inflammation, which are linked to anxiety symptoms. Diets lacking in omega-3, magnesium, and also a bunch of the vitamins have also been shown to negatively impact sleep routines and just heighten anxiety levels and all of that. But by addressing these factors and establishing consistent sleep routines and timely meals, make sure you always have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and having balanced meals at that, not having just sugar or just protein, a little bit of all, and it just helps lower anxiety levels and make you calmer and feel overall better,
Exactly.
And yeah, that's all for
that. It's important to remember that in our adolescent age, it's the time where we develop the most, so we need to be watching what we eat and how.
Absolutely. Yeah. You need all of your nutrients. So another risk factor is withdrawal from society, which can be really, really detrimental because it's very important to have friends in a social circle to be able to develop basic skills like talking to other people, and not having those experiences to develop those skills can also lead to social anxiety and other types of anxious feelings. And also whenever you don't have people to vent out to, it can also foster the tendencies to bottle up your emotions, which can also become detrimental because you feel like you have no people to talk to. You become lonely, which can also lead to depression. You just have low self-esteem and your confidence is really low, and you just feel really lonely and isolated, which is not good for you at all.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And then now in order to balance these risk factors, we have our protective factors. And since we just talked about social withdrawal, our first protective factor is positive community relationships. And relationships, they kind of serve as a buffer against anxiety in the youth because they provide emotional support, encouragement, and motivation. So, when you surround yourself with people not only who you think can help you and build you up, but it's also important to surround yourself with people suffering kind of similarly, because it's good for the mind to know that there are people around you who are doing the same thing, and y'all can all learn and bond and grow together. And communities that will improve inclusivity and empathy and just access to resources such as counseling or youth programs, they're important because they just break that sort of isolation and fear that you're just by yourself all yourself, which is important. And so in some ways you can like and get involved in these communities if you have after school programs. People feel like tutoring is bad for them because hey, if I go to tutoring I'm gonna look so dumb, but it's important to tutoring because usually there's going to be other people there who are also they're in study with you, and then that just helps you because studying is a lot more fun when you're studying with people. And our next protective factor is mindfulness, and like which includes just being aware in general. So just being mindful that you have it, knowing that that means you need to fix your sleep, fix your diet schedule, all that. But it also means like doing things to help it. So like relaxation. Sometimes during a test, you're taking your test, you're doing it, and you're just completely stressed out. It's good to just take a minute and just stop and just clear your mind, just relax for a second, and then continue your test. You know what I mean? Don't multitask. Don't do too many things at the same time. Stretches, not overworking yourself too much is important, and that's part of the mindfulness and relaxation practices.
Exercising too for that one because it helps you focus on like one thing. Like
I feel like to conquer your anxiety, it's really important to know what works for you because not everything works for the same person. And once you find that and you're able to use that as an outlook or like a venting area or something to just blow off some steam, it's really helpful.
Yes. Okay. Now that we've gone over that, time to introduce our guest speaker for today. Thank you, Dr. Christensen, for joining us today and discussing all our risk and protective factors concerning youth anxiety.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, girls. Yeah, it's great being here.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about risk and protective factors, we need to know what they are. So risk factors are mostly things that kind of trigger your mental health challenges, and they can be biological, environmental, or even social. And protective factors help to kind of improve them and make you feel happy and not as anxious, yeah, essentially. So, diving more into specific risk factors that we will be focusing on our campaign are erratic sleep patterns, diet and nutrition, and social withdrawal. So, Dr. Christensen, could you elaborate more on these risk factors?
Absolutely. So, as you said, not poor sleep or inadequate amount of sleep, poor diet, or not having enough nutrition, as well as staying socially isolated, all the bad stuff that we don't want. So, I mean, certainly we want to be able to think better. So, if we think better, then we feel better. And certainly anxiety is one that we can have that excessive worry about things that are unknown. And so if we just don't physiologically have the good nutrients with food and enough sleep, our brain can't rest and have that ability to think well when we want to be awake. And when you girls are at school and, all of the kids have so many things that you need to be doing for so long, right? I mean, you have school activities, so we really need to be able to have life in balance. And the loss, of course, the social isolation. It's awful to really have that sense of loneliness. And so, the quality of friendships and having groups like you all have, and those connections when you want to be awake, when you get enough sleep and take care of your body and your mind, then you can have a better ability to seek those connections that really are so important, because anxiety unfortunately can often go hand in hand with depression and sadness, and really feeling that loneliness is really can be a very negative cycle. So connections, good quality ones, really important.
Exactly. Yeah, and all of those things are very widespread in our youth community today, so which is why it's important to focus on them. And we have protective factors that are meant to ease those symptoms almost. Ones that we focus on here are positive community relationships and mindful practices like yoga, relaxation, and stuff. So, Dr. Christensen, do you have any insight on those protective factors?
Sure. I mean, you're talking about mindfulness. That's something that, of course, just as you were saying, it can be something more that we can be used to with yoga. Though certainly, especially for teens, that may be harder to do, to have, some set time. So it can be even just a few moments of being mindful. If you can, close your eyes, or if you're, in class, that can be harder to do, but just having a moment to not be thinking, and, truly trying to cut down on the multitasking as much as you can. I mean, that's something for all of us. I mean, certainly adults, but teens, to try to focus on one thing at a time and really focus our attention there can be just part of that mindfulness practice. And it's the other was more of the social connection. True. Okay. Right. I mean, that's hugely important, again, to be able to feel like we can have good friends that get us, that we can be vulnerable with emotionally, and genuine kind of true connection. Especially, with the smartphones and social media, and a lot of where it can be comparison and a lot of quantity of friendships or more of those acquaintances, that really can be very stressful, and a lot of comparisons happen there. But if we can have some quality time, more perhaps smaller groups or one-on-one, some breaks from the large group kind of provide an easier time there to have some quality interactions.
Yes, I totally agree with everything. Like, okay, so now that we've gone more in depth into our risk and protective factors, how do you suggest that we prevent these like risk factors from entering our lives, and how we encourage to like integrate these protective factors, like so that we can practice them every day?
Yeah, good question. Okay. Well, healthy routine, right? I mean, and that's where for you all, coming together and trying to seek that balance, just as the three of you are talking about, it's so hugely important to have balance, right? So, I imagine that you all, I mean, here creating this and doing wonderful work there, you want to put effort into things. However, we don't seek perfection, right? So, I mean, some ways to really have that balance of pushing yourselves, but just not too much, right? I mean, wanting to excel, have good grades. However, let's just be mindful that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So, really trying to have more balance, recognizing, okay, we all could do more, right? I mean, you could stay up, all night, pull an all-nighter, but that's just not a good thing, right? I imagine our finals coming up this week or soon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a timely piece to be able to look at that balance that, okay, maybe you're tempted to stay up, quite a bit later. Maybe there's some compromise of staying up an extra 45 minutes, but not that 2 hours or so that you thought, so you could completely, ace the test, or, looking at, again, a routine of things and trying to have a set bedtime. Maybe during finals week, okay, push it just a tad bit, but let's not like get the schedule off. So a bedtime, bedtime routine, those rituals, really putting the phones away, all the things I'm sure you all thankfully know well, to try to reduce the blue light and all of that. Really helps, keeping alarms, timers can be helpful to try to help with transition. Again, we're trying to seek balance. We just don't want too much of a good thing. We don't want, just like we don't want too much exercise, we don't want too much junk food, we don't want to deprive ourselves of certain things, but too much sugar, or too much, too many unhealthy foods, too much exercise, too much studying, too much of anything is just not good. So trying to get help from each other, and then get your parents to help kind of keep you like, please just, I imagine you can get some of the help that you may not appreciate them taking your phone away or certain things, but in the long run, routine, balance, sleep schedule, try to have, that food schedule. And then once you have that, really then keeping our mindset in check and really helping one another without there being so many comparisons of like, oh, okay, well, what'd you get on this test, or I did better, or it's like, okay, we can help one another and be, very, more encouraging and welcoming, and not seeking the perfectionistic pursuits.
Yes.
And yeah, such a large part of this is like, well, I'm sure we're all guilty of doing such things like, messing up our sleep and stuff. But such a large part of it is like understanding that we ourselves need to be able to help ourselves and understand and focus.
Sure.
We can't help everybody else. But yeah.
Sure. Good point.
Thank you so much for
your.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for your input.
Absolutely. No, I'm honored to to be able to work with you girls and to be on here. So you're doing great things. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, so here we're going to be talking about some personal experiences, whether it's about us or about people we know, where we experience both risk and protective factors. Kenna, do you want to start us off?
Yes. Okay, so for our first risk factor with erratic sleep and diet. Okay, so when I was first starting the school year, I was definitely in the transition from summer into the school year. As I bet many students can imagine going from like having the whole day free to now going from a whole school day to sports or whatever after school hobbies they have.
Honestly,
and for me, yes, for me, this stress definitely reflected on my sleep schedule and eating schedule. There's nights where I would be going to bed at like 2 a.m., waking up at 4 a.m. because I was like, I gotta get this homework assignment done, and then I gotta go wake up early and like get ready for school because I'm very slow in the morning, as these two know. And so it just stressed me out because I was getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night, and that's if I was like lucky on those days. And then furthermore, I went to bed late and I tried sleeping in a little bit and I ended up missing breakfast, and it didn't go well for me because at school I was falling asleep in class. I was just slow. I was like mad a lot of days.
Yeah.
I'm sure they remember me showing up to school like I was just like didn't look. I was just stressed out. I didn't really be there. And like it just wasn't well for me. I had a lot of mood swings, and I like my like sleep schedule and eating schedule is just totally off. It wasn't good for me at all.
Yeah.
But now that I've changed that I've definitely seen a lot of improvements. I'm getting a consistent schedule. I have a consistent nightly schedule and a consistent morning schedule. I eat breakfast every morning, have all 3 meals, all like the necessary balance and foods within all of them. And like now I can like wake up on time. I can go to school and I don't look like I'm depressed the whole day. I'm not sleeping in class anymore.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show how having a consistent sleeping and eating like balanced, diet and schedule just really helps someone like manage their anxiety, their stress, and like their overall feelings about themselves.
Like Kenna from last year and Kenna from this year is a big difference.
It's a complete change. Yeah,
I second that.
And just
sorry, you go.
And now I'm gonna piggyback off like the diet part and say that like for example, okay, so this year we're high schoolers. Last year we were middle schoolers. So last year would wake up a lot later, which would that you would.
Oh yeah.
I would be less tired when I get to school, right? But the thing was, I woke up in the morning and I never used to eat breakfast like at all because you know what? There's no point. I'm just too lazy to. So I would come to school. I'd be so tired. I'd sleep through half my classes, and that entire thing. And then this year, I woke up and I've started. I was like, I'm gonna eat breakfast this year. I'm gonna wake up like 40 minutes earlier than I usually do and make myself something and eat something. Make myself. It doesn't matter. I'll do something. And I'm definitely a lot more awake during classes. Because it's morning. Let's be real here. Not a morning.
Yeah. 7:15 in the morning.
But it's nice. It's nice to know that you've eaten something. And then another thing is though, like I have a really bad habit of just snacking. Like I get home and
That's what I was about to say.
I will not eat anything, and then I will have like M&Ms just spread across from me, and I'll just eat one while I'm studying. And it's not good for yourself because number one, I'm full by dinner time, so I don't have to eat the proper dinner.
Yeah.
And then you just like have all those processed sugary foods in you, and it's like you think it's making you full, but it's really not. And that's what causes that purging episode in food where you just keep eating and eating and eating.
Yes, absolutely.
And
and it really correlates to anxiety too, because stress eating is a really big issue among a lot of people.
I dealt with that last year.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, especially like because finals are coming up and those types of things, like it's a really stressful period, and you just like need something to do while you're
to
studying.
focus on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And food
and,
is just the thing you choose, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because like Bhavya was just telling me I don't eat a lot of lunch at a lot of lunch at school, right? So now instead of coming home and eating random snacks, I come home and I'll make my salad. I'll go home, I'll make myself a breakfast sandwich, and that's the only thing I eat for the rest of the day. And then I'll eat my dinner, and then it's become a lot easier not only to study when I'm focusing, so I'm not like just randomly snacking, but it's like so it makes it easier for me to focus. But it just definitely my head.
And even like we're not saying that snacks aren't a bad thing. We're just saying don't have them at irregular intervals, and also make sure what that type of snack is. I mean, obviously we're not saying don't completely cut out all the like sugary foods in your life. It's okay to have that. Just make sure you have a balance of them. Like it's like how Yustra was saying how she used to have M&Ms as a snack, you know, all the candy, but now she switched them out for more like healthier options, like an egg sandwich that really like helps her body fuel herself. She'll make it to dinner and to help her study. That way she doesn't feel like the urge to go eat, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel like also because you're kind of multitasking, so your brain isn't really focused in either area. You don't like really comprehend how much you're eating, what you're eating, like what your interval times are. So that's why like something you could do to kind of stop that is like whenever you're studying or whenever you're occupied with something else, don't eat. Like because when you eat, you want to be mindful of what you're eating and how much you're eating to kind of make sure that your body's getting the right amount of nutrients and the and stuff like that. So that's what I like to do instead of like studying and eating at the same time. So if I'm hungry, I'll take a break, I'll eat my food, and then I'll go back to doing what I was doing so I don't unconsciously consume more than I need to.
And but like when I'm eating my M&Ms, I'm more focused on what color of M&Ms I'm eating than I I need to know that I don't need two greens at it. It's just like
it makes sense. No, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's like how Bobby was saying, you know, like if you obviously go eat when you need to, but to like if you like need something to even keep your mind off of, have a glass of water next to you. I know whenever I'm studying, I always have a bottle of water next to me, and it's just exactly.
Yeah,
it's like,
or like fidget toys are really helpful, you know.
Like
anything.
So,
yeah. So our second risk factor is withdrawal from society, which I can really resonate with because towards the spring of my 7th grade year, I moved from Cypher ISD to Connor ISD, so it was a really stressful period, especially because I was moving towards the end of the year, so it wasn't even like the beginning of the year or anything. So everyone really like had their cliques. I felt really not ignored, but like kind of invisible. It was a really stressful period, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to because no one else really knew what I was going through. I guess my brother did, but it was I feel like it was easier for him because he was in 4th grade at the time. So it's kind of, I feel like 4th graders are a lot more welcoming towards new friends or new people than 7th graders. So I was kind of like in a like depressing state. I was like really not having it. And yeah, no one knew what I was going through really because my friends from my old school didn't really know how it felt like to have no one. And then I didn't really have any friends at my new school. So it was a rough patch I was going through. But I feel like what really helped me was I got a journal and I was just writing things down, like how I felt. And I felt like I had something to talk about or like some weird event, you know? And also, I feel like even now, sometimes whenever I'm going through like a rough patch or whatever, I don't really open up about it. And it's something that I really need to work on. And I have a really bad habit of like bottling up my feelings to the point where it gets so bad that like I'll burst over something trivial, you know? Like if something like I dropped my pencil, then I'll like start sobbing and it's like that was not because of my pencil. It was because of the like held on to frustration for so many months. And that's something that I really need to work on. But I feel like friends and like positive social interactions and community relationships are really important because you need people to talk to, you know? Humans are not like solitary creatures. You're not gonna thrive in a place where you have no one to talk to.
No, I resonate that like with that really well because like if you know me, I've moved around like 8 different times in my
yeah
but after like 3rd grade was my first like big move, and I was actually sad about it. I had made my first like best friend, I would kind of say.
Mm-hmm.
And I had only known her for a year before we left. So I was like sad, but just like Bhavya, this is funny. I was thinking, just like Bhavya, I started writing poetry. Then, if you know me, I write a lot of.
Yeah.
So that's when I started writing my poetry. We moved again that same year, by the way. So we moved again. Then I was just, what is happening? But then I just decided that whoever the first person shows up at my new school for both years, we're just gonna be friends. And that was this year, and that's exactly what I did. And then that year was a blast. It's like one of my favorite years of school, just because myself, and I did.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, to go on to our first protective factor, positive community relationships. So to like contradict what Bobby and Yusra were just saying, or I guess to like stem off of almost, I have a friend. I'm not going to disclose any personal information about her for her privacy, but she was really struggling at the beginning of the year, and she still is. It's definitely like a long road. Like, don't think that recovering from anxiety or like even like don't think this is just something you can get over with. It's a long road. It's a long process. Well, she had depression, but she also had major anxiety. Like, she had a lot of panic attacks, and I remember every day I would just go up to her or text her, and I would be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what can I help you with? Are you okay? And she just kept to herself, just like crossed her arms, nodded, and I was like, okay, clearly she doesn't want to talk about it, so I'll leave her be. That went on for a couple months until one day she FaceTimed me out of the blue, and I was like, okay, because we never really talked outside of the gym and stuff, so it was a little awkward. It was a little like shocked. I was, and she was crying, and she just started telling me like all her struggles for the past like few months, and it was definitely a lot, and we still have those calls. I mean, every Saturday night, me and that same friend call, and we have like this little movie night thing where an hour before we discuss what our week was like, and then we go to bed with like each other on call and with watching the movie, and it's definitely helped her sleep because she had really bad sleep pattern before, but it also helps us like interact with each other and communicate. And I recently had a text from her just a couple weeks ago, and she expressed like in her exact words, thank you so much, Kenna, for talking with me and helping with me every Saturday night and any other time, because you've helped me like overcome this feeling I've had and like her stress, and like obviously she's not 100% yet, but she's 10 times better than what she was before. And she said that talking with me every night really helps her, and I'm just glad like it not only made me feel better, but it just made her feel better overall. So
wow,
yeah.
we love
I know that's so wholesome.
Yeah. Okay. Now on to our last protective factor, mindfulness.
Yes. Yusra, do you want to start us off? Or
okay. Our last one is mindfulness, right? So I was talking about like relaxation and stuff. So if you know me, probably don't know me. I hope you don't. That's kind of creepy. But I have 5 siblings, right? And 4 of them are younger than me, so my life can get a little bit chaotic. Like just right before we started recording, I was really stressed out. I was having a bad day, and I still hadn't made the outline for this like podcast in general. I hadn't done any of my studying, and it's midterm week, and I was like thinking, but instead of just going crazy, I closed the door to my room. I asked everyone to like deal with their things by their own. Go ask someone else if they need help. Closed the door, and I just took a nap for 30 minutes. And I'm telling you, that was like the best decision ever, because I am so much better right now. And it just shows to prove that if you are stressing, you need to just take a minute to relax. Sometimes you don't have 30 minutes at your expense, but if you do, even if it's like 10 minutes, like in the morning,
10, yes.
I like 10 to 20 minutes earlier than I need to actually wake up, so I just have 10 minutes to like zen out. You know what I mean? Because
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I wake up like probably 30 minutes before I need to. Obviously, I don't do this on days where I go to bed late, but every day that I can manage this, I get up 30 minutes later so I can take a nice long hot shower in the morning and like calm myself.
That can be really relaxing.
Yes.
Yeah.
These two know how much I love my showers.
Yeah.
Every day it's like, Kenna, what shower is it? And I'm like, shower number 5. So
showers already.
Yeah.
But
yes,
because it helps her. I promise you.
yeah,
like
that's what I always tell
that's
people.
what
They always
matters.
ask me like, why do you waste so much water? And I'm like, it's not the fact that I want to waste this much. It's just the fact that for me, having like taking a shower helps me calm down, like center my thoughts, you know.
Exactly.
Especially since I have such a stressful lifestyle, so it just helps me, you know.
Yeah. Another thing is personalize your mindfulness. For example, it's like for Kenna, it's her showers. You know, I think for Bob, loves to read a good book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go chill, do something. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like
it's different for everyone. So.
Yeah, like for me, like you sort of said, reading is like a really amazing way to escape because you just focused on that world. Like your world disappears, you know? It's not a problem anymore. And like sure, it can get a little addictive and sometimes you lose track of time, but the point is you get so relaxed because you're not worried about your problems anymore because you're not like in this world anymore.
You're like immersed into the story.
Into
I'm a reader
the story.
too.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful how something can like completely take away your anxiety, your problems, or anything that you're dealing with, so that you are only focused on there. And like some people, like watching a movie kind of does the same thing, you know. And like for me, writing is really helpful, you know. Sometimes I'll like get the urge to like write a story or like write a poem or something, and it's like really helpful to convey your thoughts. And yeah, just like write them down. Like they're all ways that you can like relax yourself. Whatever works for you, and it's really important to find that. So
no, but yes, and by the way, Bobby is a beautiful writer. But
thank you. You're amazing. Your poems are beautiful.
I know your poems are amazing. You can definitely tell when I read both of their writings. You can definitely tell like the amount of emotion and thought that goes into it, and like you can like really tell how like that helps people. You know.
Yeah.
So. Okay, well, that was the concluding for this segment.
Yes.
So, on to our next segment.
Welcome to our segment of the day.
Okay, so for this segment, myth busting, we're basically just stating facts or common misconceptions that people have about anxiety. And our first myth is medication is the only solution for anxiety. This is not true. There's many solutions for anxiety, as we've previously said in our past segments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like those are the only thing. You know, obviously medication can help.
Medication does help, but we're just saying that it's not the only one that does.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go. Anxiety is just overthinking or being overly dramatic. That could not be farther from the truth because anxiety is an actual mental health condition, just as like breaking your leg is a physical condition, you know? Like it involves physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms, and it goes beyond just worrying, you know? Stress can be something that is felt over a short amount of time, but anxiety is just the repetitiveness of feeling the stress in those types of situations, and it's not just overthinking. And if you feel like you might have anxiety, it's really important to consult a medical professional.
Yes, and it can also lead to like the growth of other medical symptoms and like other
which is
like depression, like
which is why
even ADHD or anything, you know. Then you know.
Weird analogy, but it's kind of in its own way like cancer if you think about it, because if you it'll start in a certain it'll start at a certain and then it'll start to grow, and then it can break
if you don't get treatment.
Absolutely. Then it infects all parts of your body.
We need attempt to cure it,
that we treat cancer, if you think about it, because it's just equally as important. It may not seem like it's important, but it's equally.
It's just like the stages of cancer. There's stage 1 anxiety, stage 2, stage 3, and it progressively gets worse if you don't get help or start managing it, you know?
And in general, like mental health conditions are like way harder to treat than physical conditions because obviously if something's physically wrong with you, it's obvious to other people, but something mental can only be felt by you, and it's really important to be able to like assess those situations And yeah, that's
and like not try and bottle them up or like even lie about them to professionals. Like it's okay to get help. It's not embarrassing. A lot of people go through this.
A lot of people I know have therapists and they're very happy.
Mm-hmm. I've had many therapists before, and I know that when I lied to them, it did not help my current situation.
Yes.
One more myth is that anxiety is the same for anybody. Let's be real. Nothing will ever be the same for anybody. We are different people. Anxiety manifests differently. Sometimes you'll have like more physical symptoms. Somebody can have a headache. Somebody can get nauseous. Like surprisingly, one of the symptoms of anxiety. And then it can just develop in like different ways. You know what I mean? You get sleepy more often. You get tired. You stress out, and the way you deal with it is going to add on to how you actually experience.
There's also different types of anxiety, like social anxiety, general anxiety, performance anxiety. They're not all the same, and they can't be categorized as such.
No, they can't. And like you can't compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
Like you can't say, "Oh, she has anxiety too, but she seems so much better." No. Everyone is different in their own way. Everyone has to manage it their own way and like get help their own way, and like comparing yourself isn't going to help.
And also
it's not.
It's important to note that being anxious and having anxiety are kind of two different things. You know what?
Yes.
So being anxious, you'll just be like for one small moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
anxiety is more of a terminal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more of like no matter if you're in an anxious situation or not. Like I know there's countless nights when I go to bed and it's like I'm going to bed. Like what do I have to be anxious about? Yet my body's literally sees that my heart is racing and I'm like on the verge of a panic attack for no reason at all. So it's like there's just
also there's like it's not beneficial. It's even detrimental to compare yourself. For example, like if you had anxiety, be like Kenna said, if you have anxiety and someone else might have anxiety and you think that they're so much better than you because you can't really see their anxious feelings, that's not true because it's easy to physically cover it up, you know? Like you can always look physically okay. Doesn't mean you're mentally okay. And it's really
you would
wrong.
Look at someone like me or like anyone else who has anxiety and be like, oh, they don't seem like they're
it's really wrong to physically assess someone like that too, and
you can't. It's like that saying you can't like judge someone by their cover.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't know what's going on inside their lives.
Everyone's gonna have like different reasons for their anxiety. You know what I mean? Like somebody at home, so they might not show it at school. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Somebody might just completely be academically, and then at home they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that concludes our segment over myth busting. And on to our next segment where we'll be doing our outro. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Headspace Diaries.
We hoped you learned a lot and we cleared your misconceptions.
Yes, and thank you so much to our guest speaker and our sponsor. And also, just if you have any ideas for our segment of the day, go ahead and comment them. You can comment, follow us on Instagram, and handle will be in the description. And don't forget to follow.
Yes, don't forget to follow, just follow along on our journey and check out our website.
Yes.
And
stay tuned.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for our next episode.